Welcome to Podcast Suck, a podcast about starting a podcast, where we dive headfirst into the wild, wacky, and sometimes frustrating world of podcasting. If you've ever sat down with a microphone, hit record and thought, what on earth am I doing? Or if you're just curious about the magic behind your favorite shows, then you're in the right place. Get ready for laughs, insights, and a whole lot of what not to do advice as we embark on this podcasting journey together. Let's dive in. What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Monday to you. Welcome back to another episode of Podcast Suck. Whoops, getting a little feedback here because I finally went live on Instagram. You have to click the go live button. Imagine that. So this episode, I want to talk about what it takes to market and promote your podcast, because you can record a podcast episode. That's cute and everything. But unless you're actually telling people about the podcast, well, you're not doing exactly what you could be doing, which is growing the show while marketing and promoting it. Okay, first things first. I've talked about this on past episodes, but starting a podcast can solve all of your social media content problems. So the number one way to promote your podcast is to make sure you're creating micro content from each podcast episode. What does that mean, Sebastian? That means that you're taking your podcast interview, let's say it's 30 minutes long, and you're chopping it up. There's all kinds of different tools you can utilize in order to chop this content up. One of my favorite tools is headliner.app. Headliner.app allows you to go in, search for your show, or search for it via the RSS feed, pull up an episode, and it has several different AI tools that will automatically create clips for you and then send them to you. You can also go in and create your own clips and tell it exactly what clips you want. But for the sake of time and streamlining this process, you can make it a lot easier by using the automated tools. There's a few other platforms out there too. Descript is one that comes to mind. We don't actively use Descript. I don't think we do. That's kind of a podcast editor, content creation tool. But your micro content. So if you're creating a podcast episode and it drops on Monday, and once the episode drops, you post clip number 1, then the next day, clip number 2, then the next day, clip number 3, then the next day, clip number 4, then the next day, clip number 5. If you post a clip from the day the episode drops till the day the new episode drops, and you're posting this on your stories, you're creating reels, you're posting on LinkedIn and on Facebook, you're not only promoting the podcast and the podcast episode, but you're also creating content and posting on a daily basis, which you should be doing anyway. So tip number 1 for the best ways to market and promote your podcast is make sure that you're creating micro content of some sort. Now, I don't know how to create content, Sebastian. How do I do that? Well, there are virtual assistants. There are freelancers available. There are a plethora. I get about 10 to 15 different cold DMs a day asking if I need help with my micro content for my podcast. There's an abundance of resources available. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, you're going to leverage tools like headliner.app, Descript, Kapwing. Kapwing is another great one. Kapwing allows you to create video, memes, clips, reels, etc. The Captions app, one of my favorite. You can actually go in and upload a video clip from your podcast and it'll add captions to it. If you just search micro clips in the App Store or create micro clips from my podcast on Google, you will find an entire list of tools and resources that you can utilize and leverage to create that micro content. Tip number 2, promoting and marketing your podcast. You need to make sure you have some sort of email list put together. You should have a CRM, go high level, click funnels, phone sites, whatever it might be, so that you are capturing people's information. You should be marketing your content with a call to action, questions, thoughts, ideas, concerns. You want to download my free guide to do fill in the blank. That allows you to capture people's contact information and continue to market to them because they engage with your content. Same thing with your podcast. Hey, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure to appreciate it. Make sure you go over to SebastianRusk.com so you can subscribe to our newsletter, tips, tricks, and tools about the world of podcasting. See you soon. This allows you to get people into your ecosystem and keep them there and then continue to market to them. So if you don't have an email list put together, do it. Putting together an email newsletter in addition to your email list, very, very useful. Shameless plug, I just launched the Podcast Pulse newsletter over on LinkedIn. It's a once-a-week newsletter for all things podcasting. Tips, tricks, tools, ideas, news, updates, fun facts, all inclusive in the Podcast Pulse newsletter on LinkedIn. Well, why would I start a newsletter on LinkedIn? Because a newsletter on LinkedIn notifies my subscribers on LinkedIn, not just my connections. That means it sends a notification to every single person that's following me. I think there's close to 10,000 people follow me on LinkedIn. They get a notification that a new newsletter edition is now available. What can I do inside that newsletter? Provide value, teach people stuff that they don't know, include my YouTube video from that week, include any other relevant content I may have created pertaining to podcasting or the topic that I'm doing. So if you're thinking, where do I start with a newsletter? Go to LinkedIn, click, write an article like you're going to create a new post. And then it's going to give you an option. I think it's manage. Click manage. There's a drop-down bar. Create newsletter. But if you're going to do this, make sure that you actually follow through with it. Because what happens is people subscribe to your newsletter. And if you say you're going to put it out every single week and you don't put it out every single week, people start to tune you out. But if you do put it out every single week, well, then people are going to stay engaged with you. The reason I bring a newsletter up and an email list is that you can include your weekly podcast episodes in the newsletter. Hey, I don't know if you saw a recent episode about this topic, but it's relevant to this week's edition of the newsletter. You can promote your podcast, you can promote your YouTube videos, you can promote your content. You can promote anything your little heart desires that's relevant to what you're talking about in the newsletter. Third tip, swag. Good old-fashioned swag. This is the podcast. This is the audio version of the podcast, but we're recording this live on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. So for those of you watching, this is a coaster. People love coasters. Why? Because they don't want water all over their desk when they put their tasty beverage down. So swag works great. As you can see, my t-shirt, those of you listening to the podcast and you can't see anything, my required uniform around here is a black t-shirt that says podcasts suck if you don't have one. On the back of my shirt, it says start a podcast. It's got a QR code. Guess where that QR code goes? Right to my calendar so people can schedule a call if they want my help with starting a podcast. So stickers, coffee cups, coasters, USB drives I've seen before. What are some really cool things that you like to get as swag? And then go hand those out. Put your podcast name on. I got a client. Shout out to the Retail Checks and Balances show with my boy Kevin. He has gone bananas with the swag. I went to his holiday party on Friday, had a whole poster, a banner, stand-up banner set up with a QR code to go right to the show. He had coffee cups. He's got T-shirts. He's been marketing and branding his podcast offline as much as he has online. Go do what Kevin does and go subscribe to his show too, Retail Checks and Balances. Keep up the great work, Kev. So swag, merchandise, water bottles. Again, this stuff still works. It's relevant. We still like to receive toys and stuff. So that works in addition to. The last and final tip is word of mouth. Every single person that you talk to, let them know about your podcast. Every single person that you can come in contact with, that you meet. I don't care if it's an Uber driver, postman, neighbor, guy walking down the street, gal walking down the street, neighbor, networking event. Networking events are a phenomenal place to tell people about your podcast. Why not? Hey, you listen to podcast? My podcast is called Podcasts Suck. It's a podcast all about starting and growing a podcast. You got your phone with you? Cool. Pull it up real quick. Spotify or Apple? Which one do you prefer? Oh, you're an Android weirdo. Spotify. Okay, cool. Go ahead and type in Podcasts Suck. It'll pop up right away. Go ahead and click subscribe. Boom. Subscriber right there on location in real time. Word of mouth. Let's quickly recap before we close this episode out. The best ways to promote and market your podcast. Number one, social media content. Take your podcast episode and chop it up into multiple pieces of content and drop a clip every single day until the next episode drops. And then rinse and repeat that. By the way, when you're creating this micro content for each episode, as long as your content isn't timely, which it shouldn't be, you're building a content catalog as well. You can always go in there and dip in and pull up a clip from 6 months ago and post it. I do it all the time. Your past guests like it, and it's more relevant content for you. Content shouldn't be an issue if you're doing this week in and weekend, day in and day out. I have a content library. I probably don't have to create another piece of content. I'd say for the next 12 to 14 months easily. I said 14 months, 12 to 18 months, year to year and a half. You want to keep it fresh too. But you can never have enough content is my point. Record a podcast episode. Make sure you got your webcam on. Chop up the video content into micro clips for Reels, Stories, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you hang out online, and tell people about it. Second best way is make sure you got an email list. If you don't have an email list, start it. You can use Go High Level. Hit me up. I'll drop you a link. You can use phone sites. My boy Ryan Stewman dropped a software platform a few years back. Allows you to build funnels, collect leads, and close business. Hit me up. I'll send you a link for that. And then create a newsletter. If you have an email list already, great. There's probably a template in your CRM to create a newsletter. If you don't want to figure all that out, you can go over to LinkedIn. They've already figured it out for you. You do have to do some formatting and stuff, but they do the promotion for you. Hello, ding, 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 ding. It's free to do. I'm up to like almost 900 subscribers in less than 30 days on the newsletter, just because I've showed up and said, you know what? I'm committing to doing this once a week. So volume 5 drops this week. Actually, we're in our 5th week. I'm really excited about that. Do I want to do it every single week? No, I don't. But my audience wants to read it. So I do it anyway. Create an email list, create a newsletter. And then third tip, swag. Coasters, t-shirts, hats, coffee cups, hand sanitizer, chargers, whatever you want to do. Swag, get it in somebody's hand. Talk to them offline and online. And the last tip is word of mouth. Tell every single person you have conversations with, especially at networking events, about your podcast. That does it for this episode on how to market and promote your podcast. If you're not doing these things, please, for the love of all things podcasting, start doing them today. You will thank me later. You will thank your growth of the show. You will thank the opportunities and the relationships that you're building because you've actually implemented these things. Questions, thoughts, ideas, concerns about this episode or any episode on the show, please do hit me up. I hang out on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. If you're watching this live right now, what up? Comment below. I do respond to each and every one of you lovely people. Feel free to send me a DM on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. I'm here to help. Anything, all things podcasting. That's the goal of this show, to help you better understand what you don't know that you don't know about the world of podcasting. Until next time, friends. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review and share the show with someone you know should start a podcast or may already have one. And remember, podcasts suck if you don't have one. Until next time, friends.